My wife Aisha had always been my greatest support. We had 2 children, Hussein and Sarah. Hussein had completed his matriculation and dreamed of going to college, while Sarah was still in school. Our biggest wish was to provide them with a good education, but in our village, that was almost impossible. One day, I decided that we should move to Karachi, a city full of opportunities where our children could study and build a better future. It wasn't an easy decision, because everything we loved was tied to our village. My father, my land, my friends, my memories, all were there. But for the sake of my children's future, I gathered the courage and, with Aisha's support, decided to move to Karachi. I called a friend of mine who worked there and asked him to find us a house. He managed to rent a large house for us. The house was quite old, but the rent was cheap, so it suited our budget. Soon my wife, my children, and I packed our belongings and set off for Karachi. When we arrived, we were amazed by the brightness and vastness of the city. Life here was completely different. Endless crowds, the constant noise of traffic, and people so busy that no one had time for anyone else. But our purpose was clear. We had come here to build a better life. And I was determined that we would face whatever challenges came our way. I called my friend so he could take us to the house. He came in his car and dropped us off in front of it. The house was located in an old part of Karachi, narrow streets, aging buildings, and a sense of stillness in the air. It was spacious, but there was something oddly quiet about it. A silence that made us a little uneasy. Aisha said softly, "This house feels too empty, almost like no one has lived here for years." I reassured her, saying, "It's just a house and it's a good opportunity for us, low rent, big space." That night, as we spent our first evening in the new house, I started to feel that something about the atmosphere inside wasn't quite right. Maybe it was just the new environment, or maybe we weren't used to it yet. Still, there was a strange heaviness in the air. I brushed it off as my imagination. After all, we were tired from the long journey and adjusting to a new place. Aisha seemed a bit restless too, but she didn't say anything. The children, however, were excited, happy to have a bigger, more open home to play in. The children were happy. They could play freely now, and each of them had their own room. We thought everything would be fine soon, that we'd get used to the new place and settle down. But as the days went by, strange things began to happen. At first, I tried to ignore them, like the door shaking slightly at night on its own, or the faint clattering of dishes in the kitchen when no one was there. I kept telling myself it must be the wind, or maybe we were just being overly sensitive because of the new environment. One day, Aisha mentioned something that made me uneasy. She said that while praying, she often felt as if someone was watching her. But when she turned around, there was no one there. I comforted her, saying it might just be her exhaustion or imagination, but deep down, I knew I was struggling to ignore these incidents myself. Then one afternoon, Hussein came home from school looking frightened. He said he'd seen strange, distorted faces in his dreams the night before, and that he had felt someone walking inside his room. I tried to reassure him, saying, "It's just a bad dream," but fear had already crept into my heart. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late. Everyone was asleep in their rooms when I suddenly heard the sound of a door creaking open. I thought maybe Aisha or one of the kids had woken up, but when I looked toward the door, there was no one there. A chill ran through the room, the kind that makes your skin crawl. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I got out of bed and walked through the house. As I approached the kitchen, I heard the sound of dishes rattling again. I quickly turned on the light, but the kitchen was empty. My heartbeat was racing now. I rushed back and woke Aisha. "Aisha, I think there's something wrong with this house," I whispered. She looked at me, her face pale. "Hassan," she said quietly, "I've been feeling the same thing for days." Her words made the ground slip from beneath my feet. That's when I realized it wasn't just our imagination. Something was here. Something unseen but aware of us, watching us, feeling our presence. We decided that the next morning, we would talk to the local Malvi Sahib and ask him to recite prayers in the house, to cleanse it of whatever evil was there. But that night felt endless. That night was terrifying. Aisha began reciting verses from the Quran, and I joined her. We both started reading Surah Al-Baqarah. As soon as we began the recitation, an icy chill spread through the room. The curtains on the windows began to move on their own, even though there wasn't the slightest breeze outside. I looked at Aisha. She looked back at me, her eyes filled with helpless fear. And then suddenly, a scream echoed from Hussein's room. Aisha and I jumped to our feet and ran toward it. The door was shut tight. No matter how hard we pushed, it wouldn't open. We slammed our shoulders against it again and again until it finally burst open, and the sight inside froze us where we stood. Hussein was sitting in the middle of the room, trembling violently. His face was pale, drained of all color, and his eyes were wide open with sheer terror, as if he had seen something beyond human comprehension. "What happened, Hussein?" I asked in a trembling voice. His lips quivered as he stuttered. "Something here, something not human. It's been watching us." It became clear. Something unearthly was indeed in our home, tormenting us. The next morning, I went to Malvi Sahib and told him everything that had happened. He listened quietly and then said, "This house has been infamous for years. People ignored the truth, but this place has long been under the shadow of jinn." I was shocked. "Under the shadow of jinn?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes, some places are inhabited by them. This house is one of those. Living here could put you and your family in great danger. My advice is that you leave this place immediately." His words shook me deeply. Leave the house? But we had just moved here. Our financial condition wasn't strong enough to rent another place so soon. Despite his warning, I returned home and told Aisha everything. She looked worried and said, "If Malvi Sahib has said this, we should take it seriously." We decided to start preparing to leave the house. But that very night, the horror returned. It was late. Everyone was in their rooms. Aisha had put the children to sleep and had also gone to bed herself. But I couldn't sleep. There was something heavy in the air, an invisible weight pressing on my chest. It felt as if the walls of the room were closing in on me. And then the door began to shake violently. I jumped up and ran toward the door, but before I could touch it, it swung open on its own. There was no one there. My heartbeat grew faster. And then as I slowly turned around, I saw a shadow standing in the corner of the room. My breath caught in my throat. It was tall, pitch black, and its eyes glowed red. The shadow began to move slowly, silently toward me. I wanted to run, to scream, but my body wouldn't move. It was as if a crushing weight had pinned me down, holding me in place. Aisha suddenly woke up. She screamed and began reciting verses from the Quran in a trembling but loud voice. The moment her voice grew stronger, the shadow began to fade, slowly disappearing into the darkness. But the house erupted with strange, violent noises. It sounded as though someone, or something, was pounding on the walls with inhuman force. It was as if a storm had broken loose inside the house. We all gathered in one room, terrified and helpless, staying awake the entire night. By morning, we had made our decision. We could not stay there any longer. We packed our belongings in haste and left that house immediately. As we stepped out through the front door, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was as if someone was watching us from behind the door, as if an unseen presence was letting us go, but not truly freeing us. We left that cursed house behind, but its memories still haunt us to this day. Later, we heard that no one ever stayed there for long. People said that at night, strange screams could be heard echoing from inside, and that no one dared to even walk near that house after dark. That incident remains the most horrifying experience of my life. We never imagined we would one day come face to face with something not of this world, something from the realm of the unseen. For indeed, this world is full of strange and mysterious things.